Yeah.
I'm home, it's my time, give me room, let me shine. I'm so high off alive, all my dreams came alive. My reflection is me, and I like what I see. Give me room, let me shine, let me shine.
Welcome to Radiant Voices, where creators and visionaries are sharing their stories. I'm your host, Amber Turner. Thank you so much for taking a moment out of your day to be here with me today. We all live busy lives, so I am grateful you are spending it with me right now. This episode of Radiant Voices is brought to you by Polished at Home, your on-site beauty provider. Whether you're a business wanting to provide in-office beauty and grooming services or a busy mom, they got you covered. Easy, convenient beauty right on demand. Make sure to sign up for their newsletter to receive 25% off of services for the new year. So new year, next level. You thought new year, new you? Oh no, they are taking you to a whole nother level. Visit Polished at Home for more. And January 13th is right around the corner, and we are so excited for Making a Difference dinner. We have some pretty amazing people involved, including former Denver Nuggets player and coach Mark Brandel, the amazing and remarkable author Dr. Temple Grandin, and nationally known recording artist Tony Exum Jr. is performing. So make sure you get your tickets. For more information on this amazing event, visit makingadifferencedinner.com. So today on the show, I'm so excited. We have Marisa Zeppieri. Marisa is the founder and editor-in-chief of LupusChick. Marisa and LupusChick have been featured in Glamour, Eating Well magazine, the limited clothing brand's Look of Leadership campaign, Dr. Oz, U.S. News and World Report, Huffington Post, iHeartRadio, Gannett, and more. So welcome to the show, Marisa.
Thanks, Amber. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on the show. And fun fact for our listeners, Marisa and I actually met at Mrs. New York America pageant. We actually met, I believe, briefly before then, but I really got to know you at the pageant.
Correct. Yeah. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, it was a really fun time. But before we get into your award-winning blog and nonprofit, I would love to learn more about your life before your diagnosis in 2001. So can you share with the audience a little bit of background on what led you to creating LupusChick?
Sure. So I grew up in New York and also in Fort Lauderdale. I lived with my grandparents and my mother. She's a single mom. And I was a pretty happy child, had a great childhood, very loving family. Unfortunately, I was always sick since I was a baby, really. And because I had a single mom and there was a lack of financial independence and health insurance, it was really tough for doctors to determine what was going on. One, we didn't really have the money to see the doctors all the time, but two, the tests back then were just brutally expensive for what my mom could afford. So we knew something really wasn't right when I was around 9, and then it started to get worse through my teens. And then eventually in my early 20s, when I was in college, I was actually struck by a pickup truck, driven by a drunk driver. I was walking, I was crossing the street, so I was hit as a pedestrian. And essentially we call that like my trigger moment. A lot of chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases have links back to a specific trigger, whether that's a trauma or an illness or a pregnancy, basically something that just brings your immune system down to a low point for symptoms to come out. So being hit and then being in the hospital while I was recovering and in rehab, a lot of these symptoms all came out at once. So as horrible as that sounds, and it was a lot to go through, I was actually very lucky to have everything happen at once because the doctors were able to diagnose me within 3 weeks with lupus, which is sort of unheard from. because most of the times it's, they say between 2 and 6 years. So when I was born, I had major allergy issues. I was allergic to my mother's breast milk. I was allergic to all of the different types of formulas that they had at that time, back in 1978. And that just kind of got worse through the years. So then I found out that I had really severe asthma at 3 years old. I spent a long time in the hospital. So I already had all of these autoimmune issues going on, basically since I was born. And it just, lupus falls in that same category. Asthma, allergies, and lupus, you can think of them all as kind of like this hypersensitivity reaction that your body has. It's an inappropriate reaction.
Wow, that's so interesting. So when you were in the hospital and you said that you were experiencing all of these symptoms, what were the symptoms? Were they mostly allergies and things?
No, so at that time I had, within a few weeks, I started getting very strange fevers and rashes. And then I also was getting severe fatigue and a lot of pain, especially in my arms and my legs. And then ultimately I had a small stroke.
Oh my
So
God.
originally they thought maybe it was from the head injury from being hit. But once they started to do further tests, they realized that it was a autoimmune condition, a rheumatological condition. I had a rheumatologist come in. And for me, lupus can affect so many different areas of one's body, but for me, it really affects my blood. So that's kind of where the stroke came in. And I think that was sort of like the key symptom at the time, and the rash that really triggered them to start testing for that.
Wow. And I did read before your accident, you were actually going to school, studying to be a nurse. Is that correct?
Correct. I was actually almost finished with nursing school. I had done an undergrad in chemistry and then went on to the RN program, and I was almost at the end when all of this happened.
Wow. And you started LupusChick in 2008. How has the road been to building it to what it is today?
It's been, for me, super exciting. I love it. It's my baby. Since I don't have any children, it really is my baby. And obviously, there was a lot to learn. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing back in 2007. I had never blogged before. I was also at the same time starting my career in journalism. So the two kind of went hand in hand, and I was able to take things that I learned from one and bring it over and cross it over into the other. And over the years, it's just blossomed. And we went from literally a few visitors a week back in the day, because there weren't many autoimmune and chronic illness websites and blogs back in 2007. And now today we're up to near about 500,000 people a month.
Oh, wow, amazing. So I would love to know more about building your blog into a business, because you offer coaching as well as exclusive content for your members. So how and when did you make that decision? And what advice can you give others to create ways to monetize their content?
So I learned a couple of things. Well, I've learned a lot of things over the years, but a couple of things that stand out are, LupusChick originally started as Lupus Survival Guide, because at the time it was really, at 2007, I was really just trying to survive the disease. And then it sort of morphed into, I'm thriving with the disease, and I want it to be a positive experience for people. There are a lot of chronic illness websites and blogs that you can go to that are sort, in my opinion, are sort of downers. And I want women and men that have the illness to come there and feel empowered. So I decided to rebrand. And I think, today I am so much more cognizant on how important branding is, for the feel and the atmosphere and your mission, and the look and the visual and the content, everything to work together. And it's not something that you can put together in a second. It really takes a lot of time and thought to put into, and kind of, develop a plan of how your website or your brand is going to stand apart from everything else that's already being done. And once I did the rebrand, which was about, I'd say maybe 4 years ago, that's when our numbers sort of kind of went through the roof. We were at about 15,000 a month, and within a year we had gone up to 150,000 a month.
Wow.
And that was also implementing things like Hootsuite, MailChimp, and back in the day, those were the things that I was using. Today, I use a website called Planoly. I might be pronouncing that wrong. It's planoly.com, which is amazing for Instagram to really tie your brand together. It's one of my favorite tools to use. Has also helped us increase hundreds of percent as far as audience on our Instagram. And also, having a brand or a business in one specific area and finding the companies that really work in that area and that might want to partner with you. I'm all about collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't really ever reach out to someone and say, hey, let's talk about ads, or you can do this or that. I always approach it in, hey, let's partner first. Let's get to know each other. Let me tell my community about your product. Let me try your product. Let me, do reviews if I believe in it. And then once that relationship is built, I think then you can further that relationship and start talking about doing more of a monetary-based collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful advice. Wonderful advice. And I love the branding on your website. I think it's amazing. And like you said, especially when it comes to certain communities like that, it can be very down and gloomy kind of feeling and vibe, and I love that you're about thriving, and I think that like your website really resonates with thriving and that sort of thing, and I think that's really, really great. And so I have to know what led you to know that LupusChick was your mission and purpose, and what was it like to shift or transition from wanting to be a nurse to become the creator of LupusChick?
So there's still a little part of me today that would love to be a nurse. Definitely wasn't an easy thing to let go of, but unfortunately, when at the time I just became so sick and was hospitalized and bedbound for so many years that doing that was physically an impossibility at the time. But I was able, through years of really thinking about, okay, what is it that I want to do? I love to help people. I've had that, just inner sense of I want to live to help others since I was young. And nursing, I thought, would be the ideal way to do that. But I was able to take helping people and just put it in a different form. I have a huge faith life. There was a lot of prayer involved. And I feel like God specifically gave me this path and answered very clearly to tell me where I need to move forward. And honestly, following that path and what I feel He's leading me to has resulted in so many doors being opened and just success.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Because it's for a lot of people, they think that their path is a certain path, and then life happens and it shifts, and it still might be the same purpose and mission of helping people, just in a different package. And I love that. So I really want to shift gears a little bit and really get into LupusChick. Because I remember back in the day, it was like a few years ago when you announced on Facebook when you became a nonprofit, and I was so excited for you. Can you share with us what you all are doing and how you plan to benefit the lupus community?
Sure. So actually, the idea of the nonprofit, it was something I always wanted to do. I have been involved with the Lupus Foundation of America for many years, so I was already familiar with whole nonprofit and what it does for the community and what it entails. But when we were at the Mrs. America for New York pageant, I decided to take LupusChick one step forward, and I started to do the whole process of turning it into the nonprofit. And through the nonprofit, we've been able to work with a lot of government officials here in New York and get proclamations passed that May is officially Lupus Awareness Month, which is it's celebrated globally in May. But I wanted to have something here, like in New York, on the books, in Rochester, and just throughout New York. So we were able to do that. And then we also came up with a educational stipend program, because education is such a big deal for me. I love school. Like, if I had the money and the time, I would go to school for the rest of my life. But one thing I've learned, there's a lot of patients with chronic illness that need to financially support themselves, but are not healthy enough to attend full-time, university out of their home. It's just an impossibility based either on their health or just physical mobility limitations. So I wanted to have this system where they could do a trade school or a certification, even if it was online, or if they could go to school, if they could actually go to university out of their home on a regular basis, that too. But so basically, we had 100 people apply to our scholarship program, and we have given out 5 scholarships to young women that have lupus that are either in a college or a trade school or certification course.
Amazing. That is wonderful. I love that. And I have, out of curiosity, in your community, well, it's all of our community. I hate saying that. What is a prevalent need or issue that you see people dealing with? Is it the education piece, or?
I think education is large as far as a younger population of lupus patients, but I think awareness is probably one of the greatest needs.
Okay.
Still, in this day and age, a lot of people are unaware of what lupus actually is. Now that we have some larger voices and platforms coming out, like Selena Gomez, people are becoming more aware. I think I just read yesterday that lupus was the most searched medical term of 2007, specifically because of Selena Gomez. So, the awareness is getting out there. I mean, 17 years ago when I was diagnosed, absolutely no one, including myself, really knew what it was. So I would say that's probably one of our biggest needs, but also there are a lot of patients out there who are unable to afford the medications they need and also afford, living expenses, doctor's visits, and things like that.
And from starting your own nonprofit, can you share what was a major challenge that you faced for those who might be looking to start a nonprofit as well?
So the nonprofit was a million times harder than I ever expected. Just the legal and the tax documents and keeping up on that end, having a board of directors, but also a board that is engaged and helpful, keeping those things in line. There's just so many, like we think like, okay, this will be great for the community and I could do even more good. And in many ways, yes, you can. Fundraising is really tough. I can absolutely say it's not one of my gifts in life, but if someone has that gift, it may go really well for them. But those are areas that I struggled in. And I'm grateful for our nonprofit. I think we've done a lot of amazing things with it. But, looking back over the years, I think we probably would have also been able to do a lot of these things just as an organization on our own. I wouldn't, tell anyone not to do it. I just think, especially for me, because I have health issues, staying current and staying on top of all the things that a nonprofit needs was difficult, is difficult.
I can understand that because I actually had looked into starting a nonprofit myself. And then I realized all the things that you just mentioned. And I was like, well, maybe I could just support the nonprofits that already exist in some capacity. And so even with Making a Difference dinner that we're doing, it's to support a nonprofit that's already established, because I understand that it is not the easiest thing to start a nonprofit. And like you said, even having a board. And I know from my experience that sometimes the board for some nonprofits, they're not engaged, like you said. And so having a board that's engaged and really dedicated to the mission of the nonprofit can be difficult. And yeah, it can be tough. So yeah.
It can be an amazing thing, but it is certainly not easy.
Yeah, certainly not easy. So I love takeaways. And so I have followed you for quite a while. And I love the recipes and health advice that you share on your blog and on social. So can you share with the audience maybe 3 ways that one can stay in optimal health, or just 3 ways that you do?
Sure. So one of my biggest things that I recommend to people, especially those with lupus or other chronic illness, lupus especially, one thing that I didn't realize, even though I tweaked my diet and I saw nutritionists and whatnot, actually working with an allergist and getting major food allergy tests done and food sensitivities to even see what my body is reacting to helped me get out some of the things that I was eating on a regular basis and couldn't understand why I was having severe stomach issues for years. Mm-hmm. And these were things that I loved, like avocados and kale and all these amazing things. My body does not like them, unfortunately. Really? So that was tough. But on top of that, functional medicine has been a godsend for me. I work with a physician who works with a company called Metagenics, which just been amazing. They have these medical grade supplementation that is based on your specific organ systems and what is going on in your body. And that has really helped me over the years with energy level and just basically feeling somewhat better. Other than that, I would say, obviously, diet as a whole, like I'm not a big fan of super processed foods, sugary foods, fried foods, things like that. I don't eat out very often. I typically make most of my own food, which, I understand is very time consuming. There are ways to kind of get around that as far as food prep and things like that. But juicing has also been a huge part of my life over the last, maybe 10 years now. And because it gives you such an influx of vitamins and nutrients, I recommend it to people that have different nutritional deficiencies. And I don't recommend it as a weight loss tool or as a meal replacement. I add it to my meals and things like that. And I would say it's probably one of the biggest factors that helped me actually get out of a wheelchair years ago when I was in a severe flare and very deficient in vitamins and nutrients.
Oh, wow. So I believe you have those recipes on your website, right?
I do. So we actually have a free ebook. It has a little bit about juicing and my juicing journal, like do's and don'ts, just the whole journey of it. And there's a couple, believe there's like 5 different recipes in there. I also have some other recipes throughout the website. I do nutritional coaching for a certain number of people every month. And I also have like a personal, I guess it's like a little passion project. It's just a food website. I love food photography and I like to create my own recipes from scratch. And that website is actually called hugandquiche.com. And it's totally separate than LupusChick, but it's all about food.
Oh, great. And before we get into some wrap-up questions, I would love to know, what was your biggest victory from your blog or your nonprofit?
Biggest victory, I would say I've just had the opportunity to partner with some incredible companies and people to get more awareness out there. I think being chosen for the Limited leadership campaign a few years ago was just phenomenal. Basically, they wanted to show that leadership and making change in your community, can happen just from like the person next door. And they really liked LupusChick and our mission, and just to be able to go out to New York City and shoot with them for a couple of days was an incredible experience.
Amazing. So where can people connect with you online and donate to LupusChick?
So they can go directly to LupusChick.com, and they can also check out our Facebook, which is just under LupusChick. Our Facebook is our largest, I would say, our most actively engaged community. Our Facebook typically reaches about 300,000 to 400,000, so that's our biggie. And the women, and we have a couple of men on there who are actually pretty engaged and will voice their opinions, which is very rare in the lupus community. They're very engaged, and they will definitely give you advice and talk to you if you have a question.
And you're on Instagram?
And Instagram, sorry.
And what's your Instagram name?
LupusChick Official.
LupusChick Official. And now I have some wrap-up questions. Last week on the show, we had Jenny Nadler, author of Spiritual Anatomy, Realigning Body and Soul, on, and she shared her opinion on what she thought a radiant voice meant to her. And in your opinion, what makes a radiant voice?
Simply put, I would say it is someone who is intentional and authentic and has taken the time to look inward and see what their passion is in life and who they want to portray to the outside world.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm a big advocate for learning a lesson from our struggles. And I put struggles in air quotes because, we all go through things just to learn. So I would love to know, what was a big obstacle you endured in your life? And in hindsight, what did you learn from it?
I would say the biggest obstacle was being hit by the truck, and basically in that moment, in that few seconds, just having the entire path of my life changed, from what I had originally planned to be. However, I think, seeking out a higher power, for me, that's God, and determining with the things that you have in life and the things that you've gone through, how you can use that experience to move forward, but not only just for yourself, how can you use that to help someone else that is currently in that situation? To me, that is making the most out of the life experiences, and just having the opportunity to change lives. I wouldn't want it to be any other way. A lot of people ask me if I can go back, would I change things? But I love my life. I love LupusChick and what it's doing for people. So my answer to that would be no, I wouldn't change anything.
I hear you. Amen to that. Now, using your radiant voice, what has been your life's deepest insight, and what would you say to the listeners to help them follow their passion?
I think an insight for me is, I think we have these ideas or just vision of what our life is supposed to look like. And life has a funny way of coming in and making that ideal picture very messy.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, because we can take, like you said, I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a nurse, but now I do it in a different way. And I think if we can just let go of wanting that control and seeing how else can we use our gifts, we open up an entirely new world for ourselves.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Beautiful. And thank you so much for that. And thank you, Marisa, for joining me on today's episode. It definitely was a pleasure.
Thanks, Amber. This was great.
Absolutely. And I am grateful for your insight on today's episode. Next time on the show, we have Richard Gordon, author of the international bestseller, Quantum Touch, The Power to Heal. I'm really excited to gain insight from him and to hear his radiant voice. Again, many thanks and blessings to you all. Until next time, let your light shine.
Yeah. Come home, it's my time, give me room, let me shine. I'm so high off alive, all my dreams came alive. My reflection is me, and I like what I see. Give me room, let me shine, let me shine.